The moment Salvatore Moretti's amber eyes locked with hers across the crowded bakery, Amanda knew her life was about to change forever. But she had no idea that the man whose help she desperately needed was the same one whose organization had destroyed everything she loved. When she spoke those three devastating words that would shatter both their worlds, neither could have predicted the dangerous truth that would soon surface about the night her mother died. Share where you're watching from in the comments. Thanks for your support. Get ready for the story. It was 6:47 p.m. on a cold December evening in Chicago, when Amanda Walsh's stomach cramped so violently that she doubled over behind the dumpster outside Morelli's bakery. She hadn't eaten in 3 days. The 26-year-old redhead pressed her back against the brick wall, her green eyes scanning the warm golden light spilling from the bakery windows. Through the glass, she could see fresh bread cooling on wooden shelves, pastries that probably cost more than she'd made in her last week of odd jobs. Amanda's worn sneakers made no sound as she pushed through the bakery's heavy door. The bell above chimed softly, and suddenly every conversation in the small space ceased. She kept her chin up, despite the hostile stares from well-dressed customers who clearly didn't appreciate her presence. Her faded jeans had holes at the knees, her oversized jacket hung loose on her thin frame, and she knew her unwashed hair probably smelled of the abandoned building where she'd slept last night. "Excuse me," she said to the elderly woman behind the counter, her voice stronger than she felt. "Do you have any expired cakes or bread? Anything you were going to throw away? I can work for it, clean tables, sweep floors, anything you need." The woman's eyes narrowed with disgust. "We don't give handouts to people like you. This is a respectable establishment." Amanda's cheeks burned with shame, but hunger trumped pride. "Please, I haven't eaten in—" "I said no. Leave before I call the police." That's when she heard the voice that would haunt her dreams, deep accented with just a hint of Italian heritage, and carrying an authority that made everyone in the bakery straighten unconsciously. "Mrs. Castellano," the voice said smoothly, "I'll take care of this." Amanda turned and found herself staring up into the most dangerous face she'd ever seen. The man was easily 6'3", with dark hair styled perfectly despite the December wind, and amber eyes that seemed to see straight through her soul. His charcoal suit probably cost more than she'd made in her entire adult life, and when he moved, she noticed the way other customers unconsciously stepped back, creating space around him like he was royalty, or something far more dangerous. But it was his eyes that stopped her breath. They held a mixture of controlled power and unexpected gentleness as they assessed her obvious desperation. She'd seen photos of him before, in newspaper articles her mother used to cut out and hide in her jewelry box. Photos that Amanda had found after the funeral, along with tear-stained letters and a truth that had destroyed her world. This was Salvatore Moretti, head of the most powerful crime family in Chicago, and 2 years ago, one of his men had murdered her mother in cold blood. "Miss," he said gently, apparently not recognizing her, "when did you last have a proper meal?" Amanda's voice came out as barely a whisper. 3 days ago." Without breaking eye contact, Salvatore reached into his jacket. Amanda instinctively stepped back, but he only pulled out a black leather wallet. "Mrs. Castellano, please prepare a bag with your best bread, some soup and whatever pastries she'd like. Put it on my account." "Mr. Moretti?" the woman said, suddenly all smiles and deference. "Of course, right away." Amanda watched in stunned silence as the baker bustled around, filling a large bag with more food than she'd seen in weeks. This man, this killer, was showing her more kindness than anyone had since her mother's death. The irony made her sick. When the bag was ready, Salvatore extended it toward her, but Amanda didn't move to take it. She was staring at him with an expression he couldn't quite read, something between recognition and horror. "Take it," he said softly. "No one should go hungry in this city." "I know who you are," Amanda whispered, her green eyes filling with tears. Salvatore's hand froze in the air between them. "Do you?" "Salvatore Moretti," she said, her voice growing stronger. "Head of the Moretti crime family. The man whose organization killed my mother." The entire bakery went dead silent. Even Mrs. Castellano stopped moving, her face pale with terror at what she'd just heard. Salvatore's expression shifted subtly, the gentle concern replaced by the cold calculation of a man who'd built his reputation on being 3 steps ahead of everyone else. "Your mother's name," he said quietly, his voice carrying an edge that made several customers edge toward the door. "Elena Walsh," Amanda said, lifting her chin defiantly. 2 years ago, December 15th, She was walking home from her cleaning job at Mercy Hospital when one of your men put 3 bullets in her chest outside our apartment building. Salvatore's face went completely blank, but Amanda caught the slight tightening around his eyes. He knew the name, of course he did. He probably kept trophies. "Keep your blood money," Amanda said, backing toward the door. "I'd rather starve than take anything from you." She turned and ran, leaving the bag of food behind, leaving the warmth and safety of the bakery for the bitter December night. Behind her she heard Salvatore's voice, sharp with an emotion she couldn't identify. "Wait!" But Amanda was already gone, disappearing into the maze of Chicago's South Side, where a girl could vanish completely if she knew the right shadows to hide in. She didn't see Salvatore standing in the bakery doorway, his jaw tight with something that looked almost like pain. She didn't hear him make a phone call that would set events in motion that neither of them could control. What Amanda didn't know was that Elena Walsh's name wasn't in any of Salvatore's files because he'd never ordered her death. What she didn't know was that somewhere in his organization, someone had gone off the books. Someone had acted without permission. Someone was going to pay. But first he had to find the girl with the green eyes who'd just accused him of murder, and he had to figure out why the name Elena Walsh felt like a knife twisting in his chest. Amanda made it 6 blocks before her legs gave out. She collapsed on a bench outside a closed laundromat, her whole body shaking from cold, hunger, and the adrenaline crash of confronting Chicago's most dangerous man. Snow had started falling, and she pulled her thin jacket tighter, wondering if she'd just signed her own death warrant. She'd recognized Salvatore Moretti instantly. Even though she'd only seen photos, her mother had been obsessed with the Moretti family in those final months, cutting out every newspaper article, printing every online story. Amanda had thought it was grief-driven paranoia until she'd found her mother's journal after the funeral. Elena Walsh hadn't just been a random victim. She'd been deliberately targeted. "Stubborn woman!" Amanda's head snapped up to find Salvatore Moretti standing 10 feet away, his hands tucked casually into the pockets of his expensive coat. Somehow, he'd followed her without her hearing a sound. Behind him stood 2 men in dark suits, their eyes constantly scanning the empty street. "How did you find me?" Amanda demanded, struggling to her feet on unsteady legs. "This is my city," he said simply. "I know every shadow, every hiding place. You can't disappear from me, Miss Walsh." The sound of her name on his lips made her flinch. "So you do remember her?" "I remember every name that matters in this city," Salvatore said, stepping closer. The falling snow caught in his dark hair, making him look younger, less terrifying. "But I need you to understand something important. I never ordered your mother's death." Amanda laughed bitterly. "Right. It just happened by accident." "No." His voice was deadly serious. "It happened without my knowledge or permission. And that's a problem that needs to be corrected." The words hit Amanda like a physical blow. "What are you talking about?" Salvatore glanced at his men, who immediately stepped back, giving them privacy while maintaining their protective positions. When he looked back at Amanda, his amber eyes held something she hadn't expected to see. Genuine regret. "In my organization," he said carefully, "nothing happens without my approval. Every action, every decision flows through me. If someone acted against your mother, they did it against my direct orders." "You're lying." "I don't lie about business, Miss Walsh. I can't afford to." He moved closer, and Amanda forced herself not to step back. "Tell me what you know about that night. Why would I help you? Because if someone in my organization went rogue 2 years ago, they're still out there, still dangerous, still capable of hurting other innocent people." His voice dropped lower. "Because if I find out who killed your mother, I'll make sure they pay for it." Amanda stared at him, searching his face for any sign of deception. She'd grown up poor, but she wasn't naive. She knew how to read people, how to spot lies that could mean the difference between safety and danger. What she saw in Salvatore's eyes wasn't the cold calculation she'd expected. It was fury, barely controlled and burning hot. "You really didn't know," she whispered. "I swear to you on my mother's grave I didn't know." The snow was falling harder now, settling in Amanda's red hair, melting on her pale cheeks. She was shivering violently, her lips turning blue from the cold. "Oh, you're freezing," Salvatore observed. "I'm fine. You're dying of hypothermia. When did you last have a warm meal? A place to sleep?" Amanda wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stop the shaking. "I don't need your pity. This isn't pity. This is practicality." He gestured to one of his men, who immediately produced a thick wool coat. "You can't help me find the truth if you freeze to death on a park bench." I never said I'd help you. But you will, Salvatore said with quiet certainty, draping the coat around her shoulders. It was warm from the man's body heat, and despite herself, Amanda pulled it tighter. Because you want justice for your mother as much as I want to find the traitor in my organization. The word traitor made Amanda look up sharply. Is that what this is about for you? Not justice, but betrayal? In my world, they're the same thing. Salvatore's jaw tightened. Someone used my name, my reputation, to murder an innocent woman. That's not just personal, Miss Walsh, that's war. A black sedan pulled up to the curb, and one of Salvatore's men opened the rear door. Get in, Salvatore said. We have a lot to discuss, and you need food and warmth before you collapse. Amanda hesitated, knowing that getting into that car would change everything. Once she crossed this line, there would be no going back to her simple, desperate life on the streets. But the alternative was freezing to death, while her mother's killer walked free. If I get in that car, she said slowly, what guarantee do I have that I'll walk away alive? Salvatore's smile was sharp and dangerous. You have my word. The word of a criminal. The word of a man who honors his debts. And make no mistake, Miss Walsh, I owe you a debt now. Amanda stared into his amber eyes, searching for any hint of deception. All she saw was controlled rage and something that might have been respect. Against every instinct screaming at her to run, she walked toward the car. As she slid into the leather seat, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was either about to find justice for her mother or become the next victim of the man whose organization had destroyed her life. But what terrified her most was the small voice in her head whispering that she was starting to trust Salvatore Moretti. And that might be the most dangerous mistake she'd ever made. The Moretti mansion sat on 10 acres in the most exclusive part of Chicago's North Shore, hidden behind walls that looked decorative, but Amanda suspected were anything but. As their car passed through iron gates that closed automatically behind them, she felt like she was entering another world entirely. The house itself was a study in understated elegance, all warm stone and gleaming windows, with lights that made it glow like something out of a fairy tale. It was the kind of place Amanda had only seen in magazines, the kind of wealth that seemed almost fictional when you'd spent the last 2 years sleeping in abandoned buildings and eating from dumpsters. Second thoughts? Salvatore asked, noticing her wide-eyed stare. Just wondering how many people had to die to pay for all this, Amanda replied, earning a sharp look from one of his men. Salvatore chuckled, a sound that was genuinely amused rather than threatening. You have more courage than sense, Miss Walsh. It's kept me alive so far. Fair point. The inside of the house was even more impressive than the exterior. Marble floors stretched beneath soaring ceilings, and Amanda caught glimpses of rooms filled with artwork that probably belonged in museums. But it was the warmth that struck her most, not just the physical warmth of the perfectly heated house, but something more subtle, fresh flowers in crystal vases, family photos on mahogany tables, the scent of something delicious cooking somewhere in the depths of the house. This wasn't a criminal's lair. This was a home. Maria, Salvatore called out in Italian, and a woman in her 50s appeared, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. She had kind eyes and silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, and when she saw Amanda, her face immediately softened with concern. Dio mio, she murmured, switching to accented English. Child, you're skin and bones. When did you last eat? Maria runs my household, Salvatore explained as the woman bustled forward, clucking like a worried hen. Maria, this is Amanda Walsh. She'll be staying with us for a few days. Will I? Amanda asked sharply. You have somewhere else to go? Salvatore's question was mild, but they both knew the answer. Amanda's silence was confirmation enough. Come, Maria said, taking Amanda's arm with surprising gentleness. We get you fed first, then a hot bath and clean clothes. Men and their business can wait. Before Amanda could protest, she found herself being led through a hallway lined with family photographs. She caught glimpses of Salvatore at various ages, always surrounded by people who shared his dark coloring and sharp features. In the most recent photos, he stood with his arm around a beautiful dark-haired woman and a small boy with Salvatore's amber eyes. Your family? Amanda asked, pausing at one photo. Salvatore's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. My late wife and son. Oh, Amanda felt heat rise in her cheeks. I'm sorry, I didn't... Car accident, he said simply. 2 years ago. 2 years ago. The same time her mother had died. Amanda wanted to say something, offer condolences, but what could she say to a man whose organization had likely made dozens of other families mourn the way she mourned? Maria led them into a kitchen that was larger than any apartment Amanda had ever lived in. A pot of something that smelled like heaven simmered on the stove, and before Amanda could protest, she found herself seated at a massive wooden table with a bowl of the best minestrone soup she'd ever tasted in front of her. "Slow," Maria warned when Amanda started eating too quickly. "You make yourself sick." Salvatore sat across from her, declining Maria's offer of food, watching Amanda eat with an expression she couldn't read. The silence stretched between them until Amanda finally set down her spoon. "Why are you being nice to me?" she asked bluntly. "I told you—" "No, really. You could have had your men find out everything you need to know without bringing me here, without feeding me. Why this?" Salvatore was quiet for a long moment, his fingers drumming against the table. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than she'd heard it yet. "Because 2 years ago, I lost everything that mattered to me in a single moment. Because I know what it feels like to have your world destroyed by forces beyond your control." His amber eyes met hers. "Because maybe we both deserve better than the hand we've been dealt." The sincerity in his voice caught Amanda off guard. She'd expected threats or manipulation, not this quiet acknowledgement of shared loss. "Maria," Salvatore said, switching back to Italian, "could you prepare the blue guest room for Miss Walsh? And perhaps find her some clothes that fit?" "Of course," Maria beamed, clearly pleased to have someone to fuss over. "Come, Piccola, let's get you cleaned up." "Wait," Amanda said, as Maria started to lead her away. She turned back to Salvatore, her green eyes serious. "If we do this, if we find out who killed my mother, what then? What happens to me when you don't need me anymore?" Salvatore stood, his full height making him seem even more imposing in the warm kitchen. "That depends entirely on what we find, Miss Walsh, but I can promise you this. You'll never have to sleep on the street again." "Why should I trust your promises?" "Because I've never broken one yet," he said simply. "And because right now I'm the only thing standing between you and whoever killed your mother. If they were willing to murder Elena Walsh, what do you think they'll do to her daughter if they discover you're looking for them?" Amanda hadn't considered that. In her desperation for answers, she'd never thought about making herself a target. The realization hit her like cold water, and suddenly Salvatore's offer of protection didn't seem like manipulation. It seemed like survival. "The blue room it is," she said quietly. As Maria led her upstairs, Amanda caught one last glimpse of Salvatore standing in his kitchen, speaking rapid Italian into his phone. His voice carried an edge of controlled fury that made her shiver despite the house's warmth. Whatever conversation he was having, someone was about to have a very bad day. For the first time since her mother's death, Amanda found herself hoping that the person on the receiving end of Salvatore Moretti's anger deserved every ounce of what was coming. Amanda woke in sheets softer than anything she'd ever imagined, in a room that could have housed 3 families comfortably. Sunlight streamed through windows that overlooked gardens so perfect they looked like paintings, and for a moment she forgot where she was. Then reality crashed back and she remembered. She was a guest in the home of Chicago's most dangerous man, and today they were going to start hunting for her mother's killer. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called, pulling the silk robe tighter around herself. Maria entered with a breakfast tray that made Amanda's eyes widen. Fresh fruit, scrambled eggs, bacon that smelled like heaven, and coffee that probably cost more per cup than she used to spend on food in a week. "Mr. Moretti wants to see you in his study when you're ready," Maria said, setting the tray on a small table by the window. "But eat first. You need strength for whatever he has planned." Amanda ate slowly, savoring every bite while trying to process the surreal nature of her situation. 24 hours ago, she'd been homeless and starving. Now she was eating breakfast in a mansion, preparing to help a crime boss solve a murder. Her life had taken a turn she couldn't have imagined in her wildest dreams or nightmares. The clothes Maria had left fit perfectly, jeans that actually flattered her thin frame, and a soft green sweater that made her eyes look brighter than they had in months. When Amanda looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. Clean, fed, and dressed in clothes that didn't have holes, she looked almost human again. Salvatore's study was exactly what she'd expected from a man of his reputation. Dark wood paneling, leather-bound books that looked like they'd actually been read, and a massive desk that commanded the room. But what surprised her were the personal touches. Family photos scattered among business papers, a child's drawing taped to one wall, fresh flowers in a crystal vase. "You look better," Salvatore observed as she entered. He was dressed more casually today, in dark slacks and a white button-down shirt that somehow made him look more dangerous rather than less so. "Sleep well?" "Better than I have in 2 years," Amanda admitted. Taking the chair he gestured toward. "Good. You'll need your strength today." He opened a thick folder on his desk, and Amanda caught a glimpse of photographs and official-looking documents. "I had my people pull everything we have on your mother's death. The police report, witness statements, medical examiner's findings." Amanda's stomach clenched. "You have access to police files?" "I have access to everything I need," Salvatore said matter-of-factly. "According to the official report, your mother was killed in a robbery gone wrong. 3 shots to the chest, wallet and purse taken, no witnesses. That's what they told me, but that's not what happened." Salvatore turned the folder around so she could see its contents. "Your mother wasn't robbed, Amanda. She was executed." The photos hit Amanda like a physical blow. She'd refused to look at crime scene photos when the police had offered them, but now she found herself staring at images of her mother's final moments. Elena Walsh lay crumpled on the sidewalk outside their apartment building, her uniform still neat despite the blood spreading beneath her. "Look at the pattern of the shots," Salvatore said, his voice gentle despite the brutal subject matter. "Tight grouping, center mass. This wasn't a panicked robbery. This was professional." Amanda forced herself to study the photos, trying to see them through his eyes rather than her heart. The police said what they were told to say." Salvatore pulled out another document. "But look at this. Your mother's purse was found 3 blocks away, cash and credit cards still inside. What kind of robber leaves money behind? Someone who got spooked? Someone who was never there to rob her in the first place?" Salvatore's jaw tightened. "Your mother was targeted, Amanda. Someone wanted her dead specifically." The words hung between them like a death sentence. Amanda had suspected, somewhere deep in her heart, that her mother's death hadn't been random. Eleanor Walsh had been the most careful person Amanda had ever known, especially after her husband's death. She didn't walk alone at night, didn't carry cash, always stayed in well-lit areas. For her to end up dead in what the police called a robbery had never made sense. "Why?" Amanda whispered. "Why would anyone want to kill my mother? She was a hospital cleaner. She had no money, no enemies, no secrets." "Everyone has secrets," Salvatore said softly. "Even people we love." He pulled out another file, this one noticeably thicker than the police report. "I had my people look deeper into your mother's background. Did you know she used to work for the Moretti family?" Amanda's world tilted sideways. "What?" 15 years ago, before you were born, Elena Castellano worked as a housekeeper for my father." Salvatore's amber eyes watched her carefully as the information sank in. "She left when she married your father, but she was part of our household for 3 years. Castellano," Amanda repeated numbly. "Not Walsh. Your father's name, she took it when they married." Salvatore leaned forward. "But she kept in touch with some people in the organization. According to my sources, she reached out to someone in my family shortly before her death." "Who?" "That's what we need to find out." Salvatore closed the files. "Because whoever she contacted, whoever she trusted enough to reach out to, that person either killed her or knows who did." Amanda felt like she was drowning. Nothing about her life made sense anymore. Her mother hadn't just been a random victim. She'd had connections to the Moretti family that she'd never mentioned. She'd reached out to someone before her death, which meant she'd known she was in danger. "She never told me," Amanda said, her voice breaking. "She never said a word about working for your family. Would you have wanted to know?" Amanda thought about that. Growing up poor, struggling to make ends meet, watching her mother work 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. Would it have been easier or harder to know that she'd once been part of something bigger, more dangerous, more connected? "I don't know," she admitted. "Your mother was protecting you," Salvatore said. "From this world, from these connections. She wanted you to have a normal life." "Well, that worked out great," Amanda said bitterly. Salvatore's phone rang, interrupting the moment. He glanced at the caller ID and his expression hardened. "I need to take this," he answered in rapid Italian, his voice growing sharper with each word. Amanda didn't understand the language, but she recognized anger when she heard it, and fear. There was definitely fear in someone's voice on the other end of the line. When Salvatore hung up, his face was stone. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" The kind that gets people killed. He stood, moving to the window overlooking his gardens. Someone in my organization just tried to have you eliminated. A contract was put out on your life an hour ago. Amanda's blood turned to ice. What? My informant says the order came from inside the family. Someone knows you're asking questions about your mother's death, and they want you silenced permanently. Salvatore turned back to her, and his eyes held a fury that made her glad she wasn't his enemy. Which means we're getting close to something someone desperately wants to keep hidden, or it means I should run as far and fast as I can. Running won't save you now, Salvatore said grimly. Not from this. There's only one way to protect you, Amanda. Which is? His smile was sharp and dangerous. We find the person who killed your mother before they find you. The war room in Salvatore's basement looked nothing like Amanda had expected. Instead of dark stone and medieval torture devices, she found herself in what looked like a high-tech command center. Wall-mounted screens displayed maps of Chicago, surveillance feeds from around the city, and what appeared to be real-time tracking of various individuals. The space hummed with the quiet efficiency of serious business. Impressive, Amanda said, trying to keep her voice steady despite the circumstances. A contract on her life. The words kept repeating in her head like a broken record. Necessity, Salvatore replied, gesturing for her to sit at a large conference table where several men were already gathered. Gentlemen, this is Amanda Walsh. Amanda found herself being assessed by 5 pairs of eyes, each belonging to men who looked like they could kill her without breaking a sweat. But their expressions weren't threatening. They were curious, almost respectful. One of them, a man with silver hair and kind eyes, actually smiled at her. Miss Walsh, he said, standing to offer a slight bow. I am Vincent Torino, Mr. Moretti's advisor. We are sorry for your loss. The formal courtesy surprised her. Thank you. Vincent has been with the family for 30 years, Salvatore explained, taking his seat at the head of the table. He worked directly with my father and remembers your mother well. Elena was a good woman, Vincent said, his accent thicker than Salvatore's. Quiet, hard-working, never caused trouble. When she left to marry your father, we all wished her well. But she stayed in touch, Salvatore continued, pulling up a digital file on one of the screens. According to Vincent, she called him 6 times in the month before her death. What did she want? Amanda asked. Vincent's expression grew troubled. She was frightened. Said someone had been following her, watching her apartment. She thought it might be connected to her time with the family. Did you believe her? Elena wasn't given to paranoia. If she said someone was watching her, someone was. Vincent glanced at Salvatore. I advised her to come in, let us provide protection. She refused. Why? Because of you, Salvatore said quietly. She didn't want to expose you to this world. She thought she could handle it alone. Amanda felt tears prick her eyes. Even facing death, her mother had been trying to protect her. She called someone else, though, after Vincent. Yes, another of Salvatore's men spoke up, a younger guy with sharp features and expensive-looking tattoos. Marco Castellano. The name hit Amanda like a slap. Castellano, like her cousin, Salvatore confirmed. Marco works enforcement for our family. Has for 5 years. Your mother reached out to him the night before she died. Amanda's world shifted again. She had a cousin she'd never known about, someone who worked for the Moretti family, someone her mother had trusted with her final fears. Where is he? Can we talk to him? The silence that followed was deafening. Amanda looked around the table, seeing expressions that ranged from uncomfortable to downright grim. That's, complicated, Salvatore said finally. Why? Because Marco Castellano disappeared 2 weeks after your mother's death, Vincent said. Vanished completely. No contact, no explanation, no trace. And, the younger man added, before he disappeared, he came into a significant amount of money, enough to pay off gambling debts that should have gotten him killed. Amanda felt sick. We think Marco either killed your mother himself, or knows who did, Salvatore said bluntly, and we think he's been hiding from us ever since. The betrayal cut deep. Amanda had spent 2 years believing her mother was a random victim, when in reality she'd been murdered by family. Blood family that Amanda had never even known existed. Where is he now? That, said Salvatore, is what we're going to find out. One of his men, a quiet type with intelligent eyes, leaned forward. I've been tracking financial records. Marco's been careful but not careful enough. Credit card usage shows him moving through Wisconsin, then Michigan. Last ping was 3 days ago in Detroit. He's running out of money, Vincent observed. Gambling debts don't disappear just because you pay them off. He'll have new ones by now. Which makes him desperate, Salvatore said, and desperate men make mistakes. Amanda watched the interplay between the men, the easy way they shared information and built on each other's observations. This was how real investigations worked, she realized. Not the bumbling police work she'd seen on TV, but coordinated, intelligent hunting. There's something else, the tech specialist said, bringing up another screen. The contract that was put out on Miss Walsh? The payment came from an account that's been dormant for 2 years. It was activated specifically for this. Someone's been planning this, Salvatore said grimly. They've been waiting for Amanda to start asking questions. But who? Amanda asked. If Marco killed my mother, why would someone else want me dead? Because Marco didn't act alone, Vincent said. Someone with access to family resources. Someone who could arrange the payment. Someone who's been protecting him for 2 years. The implication hung in the air, like a death sentence. Someone else in the Moretti family was involved. Someone sitting at this table, or someone they trusted completely, had helped murder Elena Walsh and was now trying to cover their tracks by eliminating her daughter. Salvatore's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression went deadly cold. "Gentlemen, we have movement." "What kind of movement?" Vincent asked. "Marco Castellano just used a credit card at a casino in Detroit 3 hours ago." Salvatore stood, and the room immediately shifted into action mode. "Vincent, I want a team on the ground within the hour. Full surveillance, no contact until we know more." "And Miss Walsh?" Vincent asked. Salvatore looked at Amanda, his amber eyes holding something she couldn't quite identify. "Miss Walsh comes with us. It's time she met her cousin." "Is that safe?" one of the men asked. "Nowhere is safe for her now," Salvatore said grimly. "But if Marco sees her face, if he understands that Elena's daughter is alive and looking for answers, he might just panic enough to tell us who he's been working with." Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. She was about to become bait in a trap designed to catch her mother's killer. Part of her was terrified, but a bigger part of her was hungry for answers, for justice, for the chance to look into the eyes of the man who destroyed her world. "When do we leave?" she asked. Salvatore's smile was sharp and dangerous. "Right now. Because in my experience, Miss Walsh, the longer you wait to spring a trap, the more likely it is that your prey will slip away." As the room emptied, men scattering to gather weapons and equipment, Amanda found herself alone with Salvatore for a moment. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "Once we start down this path, there's no going back. If Marco talks, if we find out who else was involved, people are going to die. People you might have known, might have cared about." Amanda thought about her mother, about 2 years of grief and unanswered questions, about sleeping in abandoned buildings while the person responsible lived freely somewhere in the world. "My mother is already dead," she said quietly. "Nothing can bring her back. But maybe, if we do this right, we can make sure no one else loses their mother the way I lost mine." Salvatore nodded slowly, respect replacing the concern in his eyes. "Then let's go hunting." The private jet that carried them to Detroit was nothing like the commercial flights Amanda had taken in her previous life. Leather seats that reclined into beds, a full bar, and windows large enough to watch the world shrink below them. She should have been impressed, but all she could think about was the gun holstered beneath Salvatore's jacket, and the fact that she was flying toward a confrontation with her mother's killer. "You're quiet," Salvatore observed from the seat across from her. "I'm thinking." "About?" Amanda turned from the window to study his face. In the soft lighting of the cabin, he looked younger, less intimidating, almost human. "About the fact that 24 hours ago I didn't even know I had a cousin. Now I'm flying across the country to confront him about murdering my mother." "Regrets?" "No," Amanda said firmly. "But I need to understand something. When we find Marco, when we get the truth out of him, what happens then? To him, I mean." Salvatore's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his amber eyes. "What do you want to happen to him?" The question caught Amanda off guard. She'd expected Salvatore to tell her that justice in his world worked differently than justice in hers. She hadn't expected him to ask her opinion. "I want him to face consequences," she said slowly. "Real consequences, but I don't want to become the kind of person who orders someone's death, even if they deserve it. And if the only way to ensure your safety is to eliminate the threat permanently." Amanda met his gaze steadily. Then I'll have to live with being the kind of person who chooses safety over conscience, but I won't pretend it's justice." Salvatore was quiet for a long moment, studying her face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone hungry for revenge. Someone who wanted blood for blood. Maybe I would have been if I'd known the truth from the beginning, but I've spent 2 years learning to live with loss, not hate." Amanda leaned forward. "Don't mistake that for weakness, though. I want answers, and I want Marco to pay for what he did. I just want it done right." "Right according to whose standards?" "Mine." Salvatore's smile was genuine, the first truly warm expression she'd seen from him. "You're going to be trouble for me, aren't you?" "Probably." "Good. I don't trust people who are easy to understand." Vincent's voice came over the intercom, interrupting the moment. "Mr. Moretti, we'll be landing in 10 minutes. Ground team confirms Marco is still at the casino." Detroit looked different from the air than Chicago had. Where Chicago sprawled with purpose and energy, Detroit seemed to slumber. Great stretches of empty lots and abandoned buildings, speaking to dreams that hadn't quite died, but had certainly gone to sleep. The casino, where Marco was holed up, sat like a gaudy jewel in the middle of urban decay, all neon lights and false promises. "He chose well," Vincent observed as their car pulled into the casino's parking lot. "Lots of exits, crowds to disappear into, security cameras that make it hard for anyone to move against him openly." "Unless you know what you're doing," Salvatore said. His phone buzzed and he answered in rapid Italian. When he hung up, his expression was grim. "Marco's not alone. He's got at least 2 men with him, probably armed." "Bodyguards?" Amanda asked. "Or handlers," Vincent said. "Someone's been keeping him alive for 2 years. They won't want to lose their asset now." The casino was exactly what Amanda had expected, a maze of flashing lights, ringing bells, and the desperate energy of people trying to gamble their way out of whatever hole they'd dug themselves into. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and broken dreams, and Amanda had to resist the urge to cover her nose. "There," Vincent said quietly, nodding toward a bank of slot machines near the back of the room. Amanda's first glimpse of Marco Castellano was a shock. She'd expected someone who looked like the monster she'd built up in her mind over the past 24 hours. Instead, she saw a man who could have been her father's younger brother, medium height, thinning dark hair, the soft build of someone who'd lived too well for too long. He wore an expensive suit that didn't quite fit right and kept glancing nervously at the exits. He looked ordinary, harmless even, and that somehow made what he'd done worse. 2 men at the bar, Vincent murmured, watching him but trying not to be obvious about it. "How do you want to play this?" Amanda asked Salvatore. "Carefully. Marco's spooked, which makes him dangerous, but he's also trapped, which makes him desperate." Salvatore's hand briefly touched her arm. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Amanda looked across the casino at the man who'd murdered her mother, who'd taken money to end the life of a woman who'd never hurt anyone. She thought about Elena Walsh working 3 jobs to keep food on their table, falling asleep in her hospital uniform because she was too tired to change clothes, never complaining because she was determined to give her daughter a better life. "I'm ready," she said. They approached the slot machines casually, splitting up so they wouldn't look like a group. Amanda walked directly toward Marco, while Salvatore and Vincent positioned themselves to cut off his escape routes. She was 10 feet away when Marco looked up and saw her face. The recognition was instant and devastating. Marco's face went white as fresh snow, and his hands started shaking so badly he dropped the coins he'd been holding. They scattered across the casino floor with tiny metallic pings that seemed deafeningly loud in Amanda's ears. "Hello, Marco," she said quietly, stopping just close enough that he couldn't pretend he didn't hear her over the casino noise. "I think we need to talk." Marco's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. His eyes darted frantically around the room, looking for escape, for help, for anything that might save him from this moment he'd probably been dreading for 2 years. "You're supposed to be dead," he whispered. "So was my mother," Amanda replied. "But here we both are." That's when Marco did something that surprised everyone. Instead of running or calling for help or trying to disappear into the crowd, he started crying. Great, heaving sobs that shook his whole body and drew stares from other gamblers. "I'm sorry," he gasped. "God, Amanda, I'm so sorry. You have to believe me, I never wanted to hurt Elena. She was family, she was good to me when nobody else was. But you killed her anyway." "I had to." The words exploded out of him, desperate and raw. They said they'd kill me if I didn't. They said I owed too much, had too many debts, and this was the only way to clear them. Who's they, Marco? Marco's eyes flicked over Amanda's shoulder, and she knew without turning that Salvatore had moved closer. The presence of Chicago's most dangerous man seemed to suck what little courage Marco had left right out of him. I can't, he whispered. If I tell you, they'll kill me. If you don't tell me, Salvatore's voice came from directly behind Amanda, smooth and deadly, I'll kill you myself. Slowly. Marco's sobs grew louder, and Amanda found herself feeling something she hadn't expected. Pity. This broken, terrified man had murdered her mother. But looking at him now, she could see that he was as much a victim as he was a perpetrator. Someone had used his weaknesses against him, had manipulated his desperation into a weapon. The money you were paid, she said, sitting down in the chair next to his slot machine. Where did it come from? I don't know, Marco said quickly. It was all handled through intermediaries. Cash payments, no names, no contact. But someone in the Moretti family arranged it. Marco's silence was answer enough. Who gave you the order, Marco? Salvatore asked, his voice carrying an edge that made other casino patrons unconsciously step away from their area. I can't. Yes, you can, Amanda interrupted. Because if you don't, more people are going to die. Someone put a contract out on my life yesterday. Whoever killed my mother, they're not done. They're cleaning up loose ends, and right now, that includes both of us. Marco's face crumpled. Vincent, he whispered. Vincent Torino gave me the order. The words hit Amanda like a physical blow. Vincent, the kindly older man who'd spoken so respectfully about her mother. Vincent, who'd been sitting at Salvatore's table just hours ago, helping plan this very confrontation. Vincent, who was standing somewhere behind her right now, probably with his hand on his gun. Amanda turned slowly, her heart hammering against her ribs. Vincent stood 20 feet away, his face a mask of resignation and something that might have been relief. In his hand, held low but unmistakably ready, was a small black pistol. Vincent! Salvatore's voice was barely controlled fury. Explain. Now. I'm sorry, Salvatore, Vincent said, his accent heavier than Amanda had ever heard it. But this ends here. The casino seemed to freeze around them. Other gamblers continued pulling slot machine handles and placing bets, oblivious to the life and death drama playing out in their midst. But Amanda felt like the whole world had stopped breathing. Vincent, Salvatore said again, his voice deadly calm, put the gun away and talk to me. I can't do that. Vincent's hand was steady despite his obvious emotional distress. You're like a son to me, Salvatore, but I can't let you destroy everything your father built. By killing innocent women? By protecting the family? Vincent's composure cracked for a moment, revealing the desperation underneath. Elena wasn't innocent. She was a threat. Amanda found her voice. She was a hospital cleaner. How was she a threat to anyone? Vincent's eyes shifted to her, and she saw something that chilled her blood, not hatred but pity. Your mother remembered things she shouldn't have. Things from her time working in your grandfather's house. Things that could have brought down the entire organization. What things? Salvatore demanded. Records, Vincent said reluctantly. Financial documents your father thought had been destroyed years ago. Elena helped your mother file them away when she was just a girl, barely 18. She knew where bodies were buried, Salvatore, literally. The implications hit Amanda like an avalanche. Her mother hadn't just been a housekeeper, she'd been a witness to decades of crimes, a living link to evidence that could have destroyed the Moretti family completely. She never said anything, Amanda protested. For 15 years she never said a word. Because she was smart enough to know that knowledge was dangerous, Vincent said. But 2 years ago, she started asking questions, calling old contacts, trying to verify memories. The word got back to me that Elena Castellano was sniffing around old business. So you had her killed, Salvatore's voice was ice. I protected the family, Vincent repeated stubbornly. Just like I've been doing for 30 years. Your father understood the necessity of hard choices. My father would never have ordered the death of an innocent woman. Your father ordered the deaths of 12 innocent people to protect a single shipment, Vincent snapped. Don't romanticize him, Salvatore. He was a pragmatist, just like me. Amanda watched the exchange with growing horror. These weren't monsters arguing about philosophy. These were men who genuinely believed they were doing the right thing, even as they discussed murder like a business decision. The contract on Amanda, Salvatore continued. That was you too. She started asking the same questions as her mother. It was only a matter of time before she remembered something Elena might have told her, or found documents Elena might have hidden. Vincent's grip on the gun tightened. I couldn't take that risk. So you would have killed her too. I would have done what was necessary. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Amanda realized that Vincent had already decided to kill her. The only question was whether Salvatore would try to stop him, and whether he'd succeed. Vincent, Salvatore said quietly, you've been like a father to me since my real father died. I don't want to do this. Then don't, Vincent replied. Walk away, Salvatore. Take the girl and disappear. I'll tell the family she's dead and you can both live quietly somewhere else. And Marco? Vincent glanced at the sobbing man still slumped in his chair. Marco has served his purpose. He's a liability now. The casual dismissal of human life made Amanda's stomach turn. You're talking about murdering two people like you're discussing the weather. I'm talking about survival, Vincent said. This world isn't built for people with weak stomachs, Miss Walsh. Your mother learned that the hard way. Something inside Amanda snapped. Maybe it was the grief she'd been carrying for 2 years, or the rage she'd been suppressing since learning the truth about her mother's death. Maybe it was the realization that this man had stolen not just Elena Walsh's life, but Amanda's entire future, her sense of safety, her ability to trust the world. My mother was stronger than all of you, she said, standing up slowly. She knew dangerous secrets for 15 years and never once used them for personal gain. She could have blackmailed your family, could have sold information to your enemies, could have destroyed you all with a phone call. But she didn't, because she was decent, because she understood the difference between right and wrong. Your mother was naive, Vincent said dismissively. No, Amanda took a step toward him, ignoring Salvatore's sharp intake of breath. My mother was everything you're not. She was honorable. And if you think I'm going to let you dishonor her memory by pretending her murder was justified, you're wrong. Amanda, don't, Salvatore started. But Amanda was done being protected, done being treated like a victim or a pawn in someone else's game. You want to know what my mother told me before she died, Vincent? She said the most dangerous people in the world aren't the ones who choose evil. They're the ones who convince themselves that evil is necessary. Vincent's face flushed red. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, Amanda interrupted. You're a coward who murdered a good woman because you were afraid of what she might do. And now you're going to murder her daughter for the same reason. But you're not doing it to protect anyone. You're doing it to protect yourself. The accusation hit home. Amanda could see it in Vincent's eyes, the flinch of recognition when she spoke the truth he'd been hiding from himself. I served this family faithfully for 3 decades, he said, but his voice lacked conviction now. You betrayed this family, Salvatore said, and Amanda could hear the pain behind his anger. You killed without permission, acted without authority, and now you're threatening to murder the daughter of the woman you already destroyed. I was protecting... You were covering your own mistakes, Salvatore continued remorselessly. How long, Vincent? How long have you been skimming money? Taking bribes, making side deals? How long have you been afraid that someone would discover your secrets? Vincent's face went grey. The gun in his hand wavered slightly. That's not... Elena Walsh wasn't calling around because she wanted to cause trouble, Salvatore said, pieces falling into place. She was calling because she'd figured something out. Something about the money that went missing during her time in the house, money that you were responsible for accounting. She couldn't prove anything, Vincent said desperately, but she could ask questions that would lead to an audit of your books. Questions that would reveal 30 years of embezzlement and betrayal. Salvatore's voice was deadly quiet now. So you had her killed to protect your own crimes, then convinced yourself it was for the good of the family. The truth hung between them like a sword. Amanda watched Vincent's face crumble as his carefully constructed justifications fell apart. He wasn't a loyal family man making hard choices for the greater good. He was a thief and a murderer, trying to cover his tracks. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, Vincent whispered. No, Salvatore agreed. It wasn't. That's when several things happened at once. Vincent's phone rang, the sharp electronic sound cutting through the tension like a knife. His eyes flicked down toward the sound automatically. Salvatore moved fast as a striking snake, closing the distance between them in 2 quick strides, and Amanda heard the distinctive sound of multiple safeties being clicked off as Vincent's backup finally revealed themselves. 3 men in dark suits stepped out from behind slot machines and blackjack tables. guns drawn and pointed directly at Salvatore. Professional, calm, and absolutely deadly. "I'm sorry it came to this," Vincent said, his voice steadier now that the odds had shifted in his favor. "But some secrets are worth killing for." The standoff stretched like a held breath. 3 armed men had emerged from the crowd, their weapons trained on Salvatore, while casino patrons continued gambling around them, most too absorbed in their own losses to notice the life-and-death drama unfolding nearby. Amanda found herself caught in the middle, close enough to Salvatore that any gunfire would likely hit her as well. "Vincent," Salvatore said calmly, his hands visible and empty, "you're making a mistake." "The mistake was trusting you to handle this quietly," Vincent replied. "I gave you a chance to walk away." Amanda's mind raced. 4 armed men against Salvatore, who was apparently unarmed. Marco still sobbing in his chair, too broken to be useful to anyone. And her with no weapons and no training, but with a growing understanding of how these situations typically ended. "The casino has security cameras," she pointed out, her voice surprisingly steady. "Whatever happens here, it's going to be recorded." "Miss Walsh," one of Vincent's men said pleasantly, "this casino is owned by friends of ours. The cameras stopped working about 10 minutes ago." Of course they did. Amanda realized that this confrontation hadn't been an accident. Vincent had been planning it from the moment they'd left Chicago. He'd probably been hoping to eliminate both her and Salvatore in a single move, then return to the family with a story about how they'd been killed by Marco's mysterious handlers. "How long have you been planning this?" Salvatore asked, and Amanda heard the genuine hurt in his voice. Whatever else Vincent had done, Salvatore had clearly loved him like family. "Since the moment that girl walked into the bakery and said Elena's name," Vincent admitted. "I knew it was only a matter of time before the questions started. I'd hoped the contract would take care of the problem quietly, but when you decided to protect her, well," he shrugged. "Some problems require personal attention." "The men who attacked the house in Chicago," Amanda said suddenly, understanding flooding through her. "That wasn't a rival family, that was you." "A test," Vincent confirmed, to see if Salvatore would choose the family over a stranger. He failed. Amanda felt Salvatore tense beside her. "You put my son at risk to test me." "Your son was never in real danger. The men had orders to avoid harming him." Vincent's voice held no remorse. "But I needed to know if you would sacrifice everything for this woman, the way your father sacrificed everything for your mother." The comparison hung heavy in the air. Amanda didn't know the story of Salvatore's parents, but she could see the way the words hit him, the way his jaw tightened with old pain. "My father built something beautiful," Salvatore said quietly. "You've spent 30 years perverting it into something ugly." "I've spent 30 years keeping it alive," Vincent snapped. "While you've been playing house and trying to go legitimate, I've been maintaining the contacts, greasing the palms, making the hard decisions that keep this organization functioning. By stealing from it. By understanding that loyalty has a price." Vincent's composure was cracking again. "Do you think the police look the other way out of respect? Do you think judges dismiss cases because they admire our honor? Everything costs, Salvatore. Everything has to be paid for. And when the money ran out, you started taking it from the family treasury." "I borrowed against future earnings," Vincent said defensively. "Money that would have been wasted on your charitable foundations and legitimate businesses." Amanda watched this exchange with growing amazement. Even now, facing the truth of his crimes, Vincent couldn't admit that what he'd done was simply wrong. He had to frame it as necessary, as misunderstood, as somehow noble in its pragmatism. "Eleanor figured it out, didn't she?" Amanda said. "When she was calling around asking about old records, she wasn't looking for dirt on the family. She was looking for proof of what you'd been doing." Vincent's silence was confirmation enough. "She was going to expose you," Amanda continued. "So you had her killed, not to protect the family, but to protect yourself." "It amounts to the same thing," Vincent said, but his voice lacked conviction. "No, it doesn't," Salvatore said, "and that's why this ends here." Vincent laughed, a bitter sound that echoed strangely in the casino's artificial cheer. "You're outnumbered and outgunned, Salvatore. How exactly do you plan to end anything like this?" Amanda had been so focused on Vincent and his men that she'd missed the subtle movements happening around them. Now, as Salvatore spoke, she noticed that several casino employees had quietly positioned themselves behind Vincent's gunmen, workers who moved with the fluid precision of trained killers, their faces calm and professional. Vincent noticed at the same moment Amanda did. His confidence faltered as he realized that his carefully planned ambush had become a trap of his own making. "How long?" he asked quietly. "Since we landed in Detroit," Salvatore replied. "Did you really think I'd walk into a situation like this without backup? You taught me better than that, Vincent." The older man's face sagged with defeat. Around them, the balance of power had shifted completely. Vincent's 3 men found themselves outnumbered 2-1 by Salvatore's people, their weapons still drawn, but no longer providing any advantage. "What happens now?" Vincent asked. "Now," Salvatore said, "you're going to tell me everything. Every crime, every betrayal, every lie you've told over the past 30 years. You're going to give me the names of everyone you've been working with, everyone who helped cover this up. And then you're going to transfer every stolen dollar back to the family treasury. You're going to liquidate whatever assets you've hidden away, and then—" Salvatore paused, his amber eyes hard as winterstone. "Then you're going to disappear. Forever. That's it?" Vincent seemed surprised. "No execution. No dramatic revenge." "Eleanor Walsh was an innocent woman with a daughter who loved her," Salvatore said. "Her death was meaningless violence, committed by a coward who was too afraid to face the consequences of his own actions. I won't dishonor her memory by adding more meaningless violence to the world." Amanda felt something shift inside her chest, a warmth she hadn't expected. This was justice, she realized. Not the brutal revenge she'd feared, but something more civilized, more human. Vincent would lose everything that mattered to him, his position, his wealth, his connections, his identity. He would spend the rest of his life knowing that his crimes had been exposed, his betrayals revealed. For a man who had built his entire existence around power and respect, that was a fate worse than death. "You're going soft," Vincent said, but there was relief in his voice. "I'm going human," Salvatore corrected. "Something you forgot how to do a long time ago." One of Salvatore's men stepped forward and quietly relieved Vincent of his weapon. Another began gathering up Vincent's backup team, cuffing them with quick professional efficiency. Within minutes, the immediate danger was over. Amanda found herself staring at Marco, who had watched the entire confrontation in stunned silence. He looked like a man who'd just received an unexpected reprieve from his own execution. "What about him?" she asked. Salvatore followed her gaze. "Marco made a choice under duress. He was a tool, not a mastermind. He'll make restitution to your mother's estate, and he'll provide testimony about Vincent's activities. After that," he shrugged, "after that, he gets to live with what he's done." Marco's sobs renewed, but now they seemed to carry relief as well as guilt. He would live, but he would remember. Every day for the rest of his life, he would wake up knowing that he had killed his own cousin for money. "And me?" Amanda asked. Salvatore turned to look at her, his expression softer than she'd seen it yet. "That depends entirely on what you want, Amanda Walsh." Before she could answer, her world exploded into chaos once again. The lights in the casino flickered and died, plunging them into emergency lighting that cast everything in an eerie red glow. Somewhere in the darkness, someone started shooting, and Amanda heard Salvatore curse in Italian as he grabbed her hand and pulled her toward cover. Vincent had one more card to play, and he'd just played it. The emergency lights turned the casino into a hellscape of red shadows and chaos. Screaming gamblers ran in every direction, slot machines continued their electronic songs in the darkness, and somewhere in the confusion, professional killers were hunting for targets. Salvatore pulled Amanda behind an overturned blackjack table, his body shielding hers, as bullets sparked off the metal edges around them. "Stay down," he commanded, producing a gun from somewhere inside his jacket with practiced ease. "How many?" Amanda gasped, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Too many," he replied grimly, checking his weapon with quick, efficient movements. Vincent had a backup plan. The shooting was precise, controlled, not the wild gunfire of panicked amateurs, but the methodical work of professionals who knew exactly what they were doing. Amanda could hear Salvatore's men returning fire, the sharp crack of handguns mixing with the deeper boom of what sounded like shotguns. "This was always the plan," a voice called out through the chaos. Not Vincent's voice, but someone younger, more confident. Vincent was just the opening act. Salvatore went very still beside Amanda. "Antonio," he breathed, and she heard something in his voice she'd never heard before. Genuine shock. "Who's Antonio?" Amanda whispered. "My cousin," Salvatore replied, his voice hollow. "Vincent's son." The implications hit Amanda like a physical blow. This wasn't just about covering up Vincent's crimes anymore. This was a family civil war, a play for control of the entire Moretti organization. Uncle Salvatore, the voice continued closer now, you always were too sentimental for this business. Papa tried to teach you, but you never learned the most important lesson. What lesson is that? Salvatore called back, his eyes scanning the darkness for movement. That blood doesn't matter as much as power. Gunfire erupted again, closer this time. Amanda pressed herself against the floor, feeling the heat of bullets passing overhead. Somewhere in the confusion, she could hear Marco screaming, high and desperate and terrified. How long has this been planned? Salvatore demanded, speaking to the darkness. Years. Antonio's voice came from a different location now. He was moving, staying mobile. Ever since you started talking about going legitimate, ever since you decided the family business wasn't good enough for you anymore. I was trying to build something better. You were destroying everything our grandfathers built, Antonio shot back, turning us into businessmen instead of what we are, what we've always been, which is predators. The word hung in the air like a curse. Amanda understood now that this wasn't just about her mother's murder or Vincent's embezzlement. This was about the soul of the Moretti family, about whether it would evolve into something resembling civilization or remain forever trapped in cycles of violence and betrayal. The girl dies tonight, Antonio continued. She's seen too much, knows too much, and you— There was genuine regret in his voice. I'm sorry, Uncle, I really am, but you've become a liability. Antonio, Salvatore said, and Amanda could hear him trying to reach through the violence to whatever family connection might still exist between them. It doesn't have to be like this. Yes, it does. You made sure of that when you chose her over family loyalty. More gunfire, and this time Amanda heard one of Salvatore's men cry out in pain. They were outnumbered and outgunned, trapped in a killing ground of Antonio's choosing. But as the violence escalated around them, Amanda found herself thinking not about her own death, but about something far more important. Salvatore, she said quietly. Not now, Amanda. Yes, now. She turned to look at him in the red emergency lighting, this dangerous man who had somehow become her protector. Before this goes any further, I need to tell you something. What? I know why my mother was really calling around before she died. Salvatore went very still. What do you mean? She wasn't investigating Vincent's theft, Amanda said. She was investigating mine. The confession hung between them like a live grenade. Even in the middle of a firefight, Salvatore stared at her with complete attention. What are you talking about? He demanded. My mother left me something when she died, Amanda said quickly. A safe deposit box I only found last week. Inside were financial records, account numbers, evidence of transactions going back 15 years. Evidence of what? Vincent wasn't the only one stealing from your family, Amanda said. My mother was skimming money too. Small amounts over a long period of time. Money she used to pay for my education, our apartment, everything we needed to survive after my father died. Salvatore's face went through a series of expressions. Surprise, betrayal, and finally understanding. She felt guilty, Amanda continued. Near the end, she was trying to figure out how to pay it back without exposing what she'd done. That's why she was asking questions, making phone calls. She was trying to find a way to make restitution. And Vincent killed her to protect his own theft. Vincent killed her because he thought she'd discovered his theft, Amanda corrected. He never realized she was just as guilty as he was. The irony was devastating. Elena Walsh had died trying to right her own wrongs, murdered by a man protecting his own crimes, neither of them understanding that they were both thieves trying to cover their tracks. How much? Salvatore asked quietly. $200,000 over 15 years. That's nothing, Salvatore said. Pocket change. It was everything to us, Amanda replied. And it was wrong. My mother knew it was wrong, and she died trying to fix it. Another burst of gunfire reminded them that philosophical discussions would have to wait. But something had changed between them in that moment of honesty. Amanda had just confessed that her sainted mother was a thief, and Salvatore was looking at her like she'd given him a gift instead of a betrayal. Thank you, he said simply. For what? For trusting me with the truth. Before Amanda could respond, the shooting stopped. The sudden silence was somehow more terrifying than the gunfire had been. Last chance, Uncle, Antonio's voice called out. Send the girl out, and we can discuss terms. What terms? Salvatore replied. You step down, retire quietly, disappear. In exchange, you get to live long enough to grow old. Amanda watched Salvatore's face as he considered the offer. She could see him weighing options, calculating odds, trying to find a solution that didn't end with both of them dead on a casino floor in Detroit. And if I refuse, then you both die here tonight, and I take control anyway. Salvatore looked at Amanda, his amber eyes reflecting the red emergency lights. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I should never have brought you into this. You didn't bring me into this, Amanda replied. I was already in it the moment my mother died. You just helped me understand what I was in the middle of. He smiled, quick and genuine. You're remarkable, you know that? I'm terrified. So am I. That's when the lights came back on. Bright and sudden and blinding after the red emergency glow. And in that moment of confusion and readjustment, Amanda saw something that made her heart stop. Standing behind Antonio, gun pressed to the back of his head, was Marco Castellano. Her broken, sobbing cousin had found his courage at exactly the right moment. Drop your weapons! Marco's voice shook, but his hand holding the gun to Antonio's head was steady. All of you, right now. The tableau that followed was surreal, beyond anything Amanda could have imagined. Antonio's men, caught off guard by their leader's sudden vulnerability, hesitated with their weapons half raised. Salvatore rose slowly from behind the overturned table, his gun trained on the closest threat. And in the middle of it all stood Marco, the man who had murdered Amanda's mother, now holding her life in his trembling hands. Marco, Antonio said calmly, you don't want to do this. I killed my own cousin for money, Marco replied, his voice growing stronger. I'm already damned, but I won't let you kill Elena's daughter too. Vincent paid you to kill Elena, Antonio pointed out. I'm the one who's going to pay you to kill her daughter. Same family, same money. What's the difference? The difference, Marco said, pressing the gun harder against Antonio's skull, is that I've spent 2 years waking up every morning hating myself for what I did. I won't spend the next 20 years hating myself for what I didn't do. Amanda felt tears she hadn't expected. This broken man, this killer, was risking his life to save hers. It didn't erase what he'd done to her mother, but it was something. It was an attempt at redemption that might cost him everything. Very touching, Antonio said dismissively. But you're outnumbered, Marco. Even if you kill me, my men will cut you down before you can blink. Maybe, Marco agreed, but you'll still be dead. The standoff stretched taut as a wire. Amanda could see the sweat beading on Marco's forehead, could see Antonio's men calculating angles and odds. Any moment, someone was going to make a move that would turn the casino into a slaughterhouse. That's when Salvatore did something unexpected. He holstered his weapon. Antonio, he said quietly, This ends now. You're in no position to negotiate, Uncle. I'm not negotiating, Salvatore replied. I'm offering you a choice. What choice? Salvatore pulled out his phone and held it up so everyone could see the screen. On it was a video feed showing what looked like a federal courtroom. That's Judge Morrison, Salvatore said calmly. He's been waiting for my call for the past hour. Antonio's face went pale. What are you talking about? Vincent wasn't the only one who's been planning for contingencies, Salvatore said. For the past 6 months, ever since I realized there was a traitor in the family, I've been working with the FBI to clean house. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the slot machines seemed to stop their electronic singing. You're lying, Antonio said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. Vincent's been under federal surveillance for 3 months. Every transaction, every phone call, every meeting has been recorded. His theft from the family coffers, his arrangement with Marco to kill Elena Walsh, his orders for the contract on Amanda's life. It's all documented. Amanda stared at Salvatore in shock. He'd been working with the FBI. The most powerful crime boss in Chicago had been cooperating with federal law enforcement. But here's the beautiful part, Salvatore continued, his voice taking on an almost conversational tone. The federal government isn't just interested in Vincent's crimes. They want the whole organization, every family, every connection, every crime we've committed over the past 30 years. You wouldn't, Antonio breathed. I already have, Salvatore said simply. 20 minutes ago, federal agents began simultaneous raids on 17 locations across Chicago. By dawn, most of the Moretti crime family will be in federal custody. The implications were staggering. Salvatore hadn't just been hunting his mother's killer, he'd been systematically destroying his own criminal empire. You're insane, Antonio said. You're destroying everything our family built. I'm saving what's worth saving, Salvatore corrected. The family businesses that are legitimate, the people who never committed serious crimes, the next generation who deserve a chance to grow up without this legacy of violence. And yourself? Antonio demanded. What happens to the great Salvatore Moretti? Salvatore's smile was sad and genuine. I disappear. New identity, new life, somewhere far from Chicago. The federal government gets a clean end to 30 years of organized crime, and I get a chance to be something other than my father's son. Amanda felt her world shift again. You planned all this? I planned to find your mother's killer and bring him to justice, Salvatore said. Everything else was just the cost of doing the right thing. You used me, she said quietly. I protected you, he corrected. And I fell in love with you. The words hit Amanda like lightning. In the middle of this chaos, surrounded by guns and federal raids and family betrayals, Salvatore Moretti had just told her he loved her. That wasn't part of the plan, he continued, his amber eyes holding hers across the casino floor. That was just what happened when I met a woman brave enough to demand justice for her mother and honest enough to confess her mother's crimes. Before Amanda could respond, Antonio made his move. He twisted suddenly, trying to break free from Marco's grip, his hand reaching for the weapon on his belt. But Marco, perhaps for the first time in his life, was ready for violence. The gun in his hand barked once, sharp and final. Antonio Moretti collapsed to the casino floor, his revolution ending before it had truly begun. In the silence that followed, his men slowly laid down their weapons. Federal agents in tactical gear poured through the casino's entrances, having apparently been waiting for Salvatore's signal all along. It's over, Salvatore said quietly, and Amanda could hear exhaustion in his voice. It's finally over. Marco released his weapon and sank into a nearby chair, his face gray with shock. I killed him, he said numbly. I actually killed him. You saved lives, Amanda told him. Mine and others. Does that make up for what I did to your mother? Amanda considered the question seriously. No, she said finally, but it's a start. As federal agents moved to secure the scene, Salvatore crossed to Amanda. There's something else I need to tell you, he said. More revelations? She asked weakly. The money your mother took, he said. I'm giving it back to you, the original amount plus interest. Consider it an inheritance from your mother's estate. I don't want blood money. It's not blood money, Salvatore said gently. It's your college fund, the money your mother stole to give you a better life. She would have wanted you to have it. Amanda stared at him, this complicated man who had just destroyed his own world to bring justice to hers. What happens now? Now you get to choose, Salvatore said. You can go back to your old life, try to pretend none of this happened, or you come with me. New identities, new lives, somewhere we can start fresh without the weight of our family's crimes. Amanda looked around the casino, at the federal agents and the crime scene tape, and the body of the man who would have killed her. Then she looked at Marco, broken but finally honest, and at the evidence of a criminal empire crumbling into history. What about him? She asked, nodding toward Marco. He'll testify, serve his time, and hopefully find some peace, Salvatore said. What he does with his second chance is up to him. Amanda nodded slowly. Justice wasn't always perfect, but sometimes it was enough. And us? She asked. That depends on your answer. Amanda thought about her mother, about Elena Walsh, who had stolen money to give her daughter opportunities, but had died trying to make amends. She thought about the past 2 years of grief and survival and desperate questions. She thought about the man standing before her, who had given up everything he'd built to find the truth and protect her life. Yes, she said simply. Yes? Yes, I'll come with you. Yes, I trust you. Yes, She took a deep breath. Yes, I love you too. Salvatore's smile was like sunlight breaking through clouds. He reached for her hand, and Amanda took it without hesitation. 6 months later, Amanda Walsh, now Amanda Morrison, stood on the deck of a small house overlooking the Pacific Ocean in Oregon. The morning coffee in her hands was perfect. The view was breathtaking, and the man emerging from the house behind her had become the center of her world. Any regrets? Salvatore, now Samuel Morrison, asked, wrapping his arms around her waist. About leaving Chicago, about new identities, about falling in love with a reformed crime boss. Any of it. All of it. Amanda leaned back against his chest, feeling safe and loved and home. Ask me again in 50 years. I will, he promised, pressing a kiss to her temple, every morning for the rest of our lives. In the distance, Waves crashed against the rocky shore, washing away the past and bringing new possibilities with each tide. Amanda thought about her mother, about justice and love and the complicated ways that broken people could heal each other. Sometimes the most dangerous choice was the one that saved you. Sometimes the end of one story was just the beginning of something better. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, love really could conquer everything, even the crimes of the past.